I never saw you guys' podcast, and then I saw one of my guys sent it to me and said, "Oh, Ian's on there, and like they're talking about bombastic and stuff." And I was like, I actually like this, man. Like, I just love machine talk. I just love the trade and stuff. And then, yeah, then I heard one of you guys like, got banned or something, was talking crap, and I was like, wait, what's going on here?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Impractical Machinist podcast. My name is Patrick. You can find me on Instagram as @JobShopperTN.
And I'm Cameron from Machinists Cool. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd appreciate a 5-star rating.
I'm Bradley with Marvel Machining. If you're on YouTube, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the Practical Machinist YouTube channel.
On this episode, we are joined by Titan Gilroy, the founder of Titans of CNC. Today, we'll be diving into Titan's history in the machining trade, from humble beginnings as a CNC operator with a troubled past, building up to the present day of running the largest machining social media presence on the internet. Well, like I said, I appreciate that you did, Titan. Honestly, in hindsight, it's funny because I try to be a pleasant, easygoing guy. Yeah. So there's a humor in the fact that me, of all people, got blocked. I find it pretty funny.
Pat is very non-controversial. He does not like controversy at all.
Like you said something that was, whatever. And again, like I told you, like the platforms there's so many, and you're dealing with like, millions of people now, right? All over the world and stuff. And, so the biggest thing for us is like, hey, like today, I'm like, hey, let's have a talk, and like bring any question. Like, I don't even care. Like, let's just talk manufacturing. Mm-hmm. But then you don't always get that opportunity. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, they just listen to fake news, and they just think like they know, and they just want to talk. And no matter what you say to them, you just can't get through to them. So if they're going to be disrespectful, and we have, the thing that we've done is we've opened it up to kids, man. We have kids from high schools, and we have a Titan, like a kids series where you have 12-year-olds and 10-year-olds on it, Yeah. So, I don't agree with everyone getting online, but there's a lot of like young people, there's a lot of teachers, a lot of different things. So if it gets too disrespectful, my word to my team that kind of like just double checks it is like, if it's just, you just are not going to be able to have a conversation, then just put a stop to it. Let's just move forward. Let's just move forward to greatness and say, just we're here to just change the trade, man, and inspire people and show kids that, hey, this is like, something that is viable for you. College is not for everyone. You know what I mean? Yep. No matter where you come from, if you can make things, man, like people making go-karts, the kids out there making their own toys and have no money, you are perfect for this trade. You know what I mean?
Yep. So you said college isn't for everyone. Did you go to college for this? No.
I went to prison.
Yeah.
But I was hungry after that.
Yeah. How did you get into this industry? When you got out of prison, how did you decide that you wanted to go into machining? What was?
It's funny. Like, not to go into too much detail, but like I was just always a creative kid. I went to Hawaii when I was young, like 3rd grade, and then we were like living off the beach and living on the beach, homeless and stuff. And then, by the time my mom got us like a place to live and stuff when I was probably 6th grade, I was just, we had no money, we had no food, we're just, crazy, man, but I just was making my own toys. I was making my own everything. I just was always super creative and stuff. So like growing up, it's like being the only white kid in like Hawaii, like when you're in like people think it's paradise, but at the same time, there's a toughness about Hawaii where it's like, you grew up with Tongans and Samoans and Filipinos and Hawaiians, and they don't, and where I grew up, they don't like white people. You know what I mean? Yeah. They call them haoles and stuff. So when I grew up, I just got my ass handed to me. You know what I mean? Like every single day. So I used to seclude myself. I just oil paint, man. I draw, I just do art. I just make stuff. I make my own skim boards and go skimming and stuff. And when I say like I went to prison, it was like, it's not a joking matter. I just became good at fighting, man, and street fighting. And one day after I was a boxer for Top Rank Boxing out of Vegas, I'd been the only one coming out of Hawaii to actually make it. I was with George Foreman's trainer, working out with the heavyweight champion of the world and top fighters, and just from street fighting, man, and things going on with a new son in Hawaii and my ex and stuff. And I went back over there and I ended up hitting somebody. I got into the fight, but when I hit them, they hit the concrete. They fell back and hit their stuff. I never intended, but yeah, I got like two assault charges because then this man came at me and I hit him too. And then when I was in prison, I started teaching boxing to the inmates, and I started just drawing and working out and stuff. So when I came out, I just was like, I had no future. I had no, like, I tried to get a job at Home Depot, and I couldn't get a job at Home Depot, and I had absolutely no future. I had no skills except fighting and art. And then I looked in the paper and I just saw a saw operator, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. I know what a skill saw is, from like wood and stuff. We're in Hawaii, there's no manufacturing, so.
I was going to ask that. How is that down there?
Yeah, there's no manufacturing. And that's why people don't know that there's a huge poverty, huge homelessness, huge, like the prison is 90% of every inmate goes back to prison in Hawaii because of the drug problems that they have over there. And because of it's the most expensive place to live. You have to have 3 jobs to survive. And then all these people that grow up over there that have tattoos on their necks and this that aren't, equipped for the tourist industry, they don't have jobs and they deal with drugs and other things, and that's the world. I never got into drugs, but that's the world that I kind of came from and stuff. But that's why I'm like, that's why I fight hard for manufacturing and stuff. But I just got like I saw saw operator, and I went over there and got a job at a place called Campbell Tool and Metal in Campbell, California. And I went in there, and they used to take these big sheets of material, and then they put them into these metal saws and like clamp them down and cut these strips and take the strips. So you got like 4-inch thick, aluminum, and like 4x12 plates, and then they're just cut them, and then flip them, cut, put them on pallets and stack them up. And I learned how to use calipers and micrometers and stuff like that, and then checking everything, and then they go to all these machine shops, go on the truck and go to machine shops, and I had no idea like what a machine shop was. I had never heard of a CNC machine or anything, but then within 6 months I could run every single saw in the whole place, all of the plate saws, all of the different ones. I was only one of 2 guys in the whole company that could do it. And at that time I was 26 years old. So I did 3 years, and then I got out when I was 25, and then so I'm 26 right there. And then I just, I was just like, man, maybe I can do something, like maybe I can get like a license. I think I was making $9 an hour, and then the driver who drives to the machine shops, and in the Bay Area, you have crazy machine shops everywhere and stuff, big companies and stuff. So one day he came back and he's like, hey, I just went to this place, Campbell Tool and Metal. And then they actually are looking for a young guy that they can teach the trade to. They got all these CNC machines. They do prototype work for NASA and Siemens and all these things. And like, you need to go over there. I told them all about you. And I went over there and went on a Friday, told them I'd be their best worker. They said they'd think about it. I went back on Monday early in the morning, right when it opened. Hey, I'll be your best worker. And they gave me a job for $11 an hour. And 6 months later, I was the head programmer. And a year later, I ran the company. And then 4 years later, I wanted bigger and better things. I wanted to run horizontal lines. I wanted to just do the elite of manufacturing. I set out on a journey, man. And it wasn't what I thought it was, Yeah. Long story, but
Yeah.
I think that there's a million people that I meet that are struggling, and they just have no idea that CNC exists. They have no idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's one of the hardest jobs to explain to people.
Yeah.
I get like you tell people you're a machinist, and like, so you like run bulldozers and stuff, or oh, you work on cars?
Yeah.
No, I don't even know what to tell you. I'll just show you a video or something if you want it to make sense. But
when they said machine, I kept thinking like locomotive, like I kept thinking like trains and stuff. Like I just was like, I couldn't envision it because I'd never seen it. You know what I mean? We didn't even have a TV growing up. You know what I mean? So I just had I was so clueless.
Yeah.
But then when you put me in front of a machine, the best thing that happened, I learned on a prototype. So I was actually doing like second op work and different things on a PhotoTrack, and you could actually make little programs like, hey, I'm going to do a rectangle, and then you can use cutter comp and Klein mill, and so I started on the PhotoTrack for like a few months, and just programming that gave me the idea like this is how it works. So when I went to the CNC, I just understood how it works. You know what I mean? And then I just wasn't intimidated, and it was a cool company because they let me like make adjustments and change, and I just was like, hey, if I'm going 6,000 RPMs and I'm going 60 inches a minute, what if I go 10,000? Does that mean I can go 90 inches a minute? You know what I mean? And I just had fun. And there's so many people out here that would do great in this trade.
Yeah.
So people can talk crap about YouTube. They can talk about crap about social media. And there's a lot of garbage on it. And you 100% have to protect your kids. But at the same time, there's more awareness right now to show people that, hey, this is something super cool.
Yeah.
And blasting chips against the window and that freaking stupid guy saying boom and stuff. It's kind of fun though. Like,
yeah,
you can go mediocre and slow, or you can make some money and like have some fun. So.
Yeah. Right. I always find it interesting asking, and I ask how you got into this. It's always interesting to me how people got into this trade, because it's usually you got a family member that's in it that brings you into it. Not many people go into it because they want to go into it. They kind of fall into it. They see an operator position, they see something, and they just take the job, and then they just grow with it, or they just be an operator. But I kind of same thing. I was doing a little bit of time. I did a year when I was 17, and part of the program I was in, they brought us to a tech school, and we got to run a machine. And that was the first time I ever saw a machine. I was 17 years old, and it was like, this thing's fucking moving. And I was like, holy shit, this is kind of cool. Yeah. And then when I got out, my uncle was living with me, and he was a machinist. He's like, hey, do you want a job? And I was like, well, I don't know what any of this is, but sure. And I went in on Thursday, had an interview, started on a Monday, and it was like, I got to run this machine. I don't even know what the fuck these things do. Like, I'm 18 years old. This is crazy. Yeah. And it was just all manual equipment, hand turning everything. It was super cool.
Yeah. I mean, you can go bag groceries, man. You can go do, work in an aisle at Home Depot and show people where the plants are and stuff. And you can be putting a piece of metal into a machine and having cutters just go through it and then come out with finished parts. And, I think like in life, you just start realizing, wait, we just created something that is value, and you trade that for money, and there's a price to it. And then if this takes 60 minutes and I can get it to 40 minutes and save 20 minutes, like what would that mean, and how much more work can I get? And that whole thing just starts working, and it just becomes a game. I just love it.
I do too. I love it. It's starting with that piece of material, and then after a few hours seeing a finished part. I mean, I've been doing this 22 years now, and it's still to this day, it's like I look over and see the parts I've been running for the last 3 days, and it's like, that's fucking cool. Like, I made that.
Exactly. And then, people, some people think I'm anal or whatever, but then when they get to understand me, like, I just have respect for it, man. So, I talk to my machinist, not now because they're all, I got great guys with me, but before I was just like, man, don't put a finished surface on the rack, like, put down foam, then put the finish, like I don't want a blemish on that part. I want it to be absolutely perfect, like a work of art. Like, let's make jewelry, you know what I mean?
Right. I'm the same way, and I feel like I get on people's nerves because I do that all the time. I'm like, all these like nitpicky little things that I want to point out to them. Like, how do you actually get those things across to people without coming across like you're just an anal dickhead about everything?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's what makes you great. You know what I mean? That's what makes you great. I don't know if you guys have had women working in your shop and stuff, but I always say, like, women are actually great because they're so intricate, and they care about the details, you know what I mean? And they'll just follow that process, where a lot of times guys will always have their head like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I'm doing this, but like, I want to do that, and stuff. But I think that's what makes a great machinist. And now that we do filmmaking too, and we make all our videos and do different things, I've noticed that my machinists and my editors and film guys are the same. So you're always like an introvert, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can be 10 hours on a machine, programming, doing whatever, and be all about it. But you care so much, you know what I mean? And stuff. And so when I don't think I answered a question earlier when you guys asked me like, how do I deal with, like all this stuff? But it's like, I joke around. I got the thickest skin in the game. You know what I mean? But I tell people like I got the thickest skin in the game because like I'm attempting to show somebody, like it's funny, huh? Back when I was starting, everyone's like American manufacturing, we need to bring awareness and we need to do these things. But as soon as somebody steps out and says, hey, I'm actually going to dedicate my life to actually doing this, and nobody's ever done it, so I don't know how to do it, I'm just going to start stepping out there, then of course everyone just wants to be like, you're not good enough. Like, even though there's nobody else, like, let's just cut him at his legs. Let's just, let's just do anything that we can to bring him down. You know what I mean? And, I went through a lot of stuff at the beginning and stuff, but you just weather it, man. You just weather it, and then you just have consistency and let your work speak for itself. Anybody online can talk crap. They can say whatever they want. But at the end of the day, every time I turn on my phone, I'm not seeing them. I'm seeing kids holding up parts that they machined using our curriculum all over the world. You know what I mean? I'm showing Purdue University students like rising up because they're actually machining our parts. MIT's rising up, they're machining our parts. I got a kid from Purdue that runs the school machine shop over there, and he came over. He had every 5-axis part that we had in our 5-axis curriculum, and he came to Bombastic and showed me every part just flawless and stuff. And that's what I care about.
You're exactly right there. You got these people that keyboard warriors that can talk shit all day, but they're not doing anything. They're sitting behind a computer just calling you out for what you're doing. You're doing something. We're showing the community what we're doing. We're sticking out there doing something. Yeah. And there's just people that want to talk shit for no reason.
Yeah.
Jealous.
And like, wait, I learned from this guy. I have a shop now. I have this, you know what I mean? And so I don't even care anymore. You can concentrate on negative and be negative and your whole life be negative, or you can concentrate on positive and block it and positive.
Yeah, that's a lot of it.
The interesting thing too is all these people that are commenting about stuff online, if they were to actually be there in person and see what you're doing and just talk to you or like watch what's happening in person, chances are they wouldn't have any of those negative things to say. I think a lot of machinists see your videos and they just think, oh, they're just trying to cut stuff as fast and aggressive as they can to make it look super cool, and it doesn't. And then it's giving people a false perception of what it actually takes to machine a part.
Yeah,
and I think that's what they get aggravated by. But I don't know. I've ran some of the feeds and speeds that I run a 3-inch Dodeca Mini, the same feeds and speeds as that video y'all did, and a bunch of different materials, and that worked. I still do it every day.
100%. So it's like not everybody. So if you have thousands of videos online, not everybody's going to see every video, right?
Yeah.
So there's videos where we're running 4-inch face mills at 1,000 inches a minute, and we're just blowing through things, and I'm like, wow, dude, chips are like blasting and stuff. But then they miss the part where I'm just like, dude, I'm not telling you to run it at 1,000 inches a minute. You know what I mean? I'm not telling you. And I joke around like I'm the biggest, crap talker in the world, like, you know what I mean, like with my guys, you know what I mean, because I'm a machinist too, right? But I'll just be like, I'm like Morpheus, man. I'm just trying to open your mind. You're running at 100 inches per minute. I'm running at 1,000 inches per minute. It didn't break. It's running perfectly. What if you went 400 inches a minute? And you made that your standard. That's 4 times productivity. That means you're making money. You guys want to sit here and cry about not making money and about your bosses not paying you and about this and about you're not getting customers. I've always gotten customers. I've always made money in this trade. Was the first person to get in with SpaceX because I sold myself to them. You know what I mean? Based on productivity, based on this is how other people run, this is how I run. And I've done it for years. And anybody that's been around me has seen that I've done it for years. And at the end of the day, it's a proven process, So when I started running at 800 inches, I was like, how much can a cost go? 831. So I'm just like, I just made it my thing. I'm just going to run, MA Ford, the 138 Series 3 flute. I'm just going to run that thing at max speed because it's aluminum. And I'm just going to just profile mill everything, drop down full depth, small radial, and 800 inches a minute. And then I would show my customers, like they would come in and I'd show them like, this is what you guys were paying. this is what you're paying me, and this is why. And they would love it that I actually took the time to show them how other machines run, how I run, and this and this. And people, I did a video where people were like, "You're gonna break a machine." And I'm like, "So what?" You know what I mean? I got 30 machines when I had before I had doing what I was doing now. I got 30 machines. Dude, in a year, if I break one, that time Haas spindle, it's $6,000.
Yep.
But the mentality and the work that I'm able to fill up 3 shifts with work and go at a low rate because all my machines are full. Like I looked at it, I'm like, these guys want to charge $100, $150 an hour. They want to do this and they cry about not having work. And I'm like, I'll run at 50, $60 an hour. You know what I mean? But I'm running all my machines. I have the right type of work. I'm running 3 shifts, 116 hours a week, 10 on 10, 4 days with 12, 12, 12 on the weekends, and killing it. But I have the work to support it, and therefore the entire system makes it affordable, you know what I mean, for people to purchase from us, and they don't go anywhere else.
There's a shop near me, Titan. I live in Tennessee, and there's not a lot of manufacturing in this area, but there's a shop that specializes in like tool and die work. The person that taught me how to program years ago worked there, and he kind of learned their philosophy that the owner of the company said, essentially, the faster that you can go and the more aggressively that you can machine a part, the better chance that you're going to keep that work here and keep it out of China. And I think that philosophy is a lot in line with your own of, hey, the faster we can make this part, the faster we can get it to the customer, the better chance we have of keeping this work in the USA.
Yeah. And that's been my philosophy from day one. I'm like, the people saying that because of cheap labor, we can't compete with China, that is just absolutely bullshit. And I'm like, here's the reason. That there's just like a machine tool and a part, there's variables to it, from the machine tool to the spindle connection to, you know, is it a 40, is it a 50, is it a HSK 100? You know, what is a work holding, what is this, what is that? But how are you, like, just like in China, they don't have the mindset to actually run great. They run mediocre, and it doesn't matter. Once it's in the machine, it's being run, and that guy, whether he makes $2 an hour or whatever, and they keep getting more efficient, of course. But at the time, I was just like, shoot, this is a mighty bike. And at that time, nobody was, only legit people were running mighty bikes. Here's a mighty bike, and guess what? Let's stop using these vices for these little parts. Let's actually put a fixture on here. Let's actually run, 60 parts. Hey, here's a chip fan. You know what I mean? Let's actually, blow that once in a while so we can just run these things complete, and then allow, one guy to run 4 machines, and then who cares about labor? And then you're running way faster because you programmed it in an elite fashion. You're running way more machine parts per machine, and you create a system that basically just outcompetes, all of it. And of course, China's automated now. Why not automate over here? Everyone wants to talk crap about robots and automation, but I'm a huge believer that, hey, everybody else is doing it. If you do it here, you're doing it at the same, just have elite programming, and you might not have as many people per company, but you have way more companies, you know what I mean, with thoughts that run more efficiently, and you manufacture everything here.
Yeah. So what do you think the answer is whenever you have situations like Chinese manufacturing companies producing parts for cheaper than we can buy the material for?
Well, that is a 100% a problem, right? And then it depends on the material, and it depends on the parts. If you look at certain parts and stuff, there is definitely a struggle with that, and we need to get better with materials and stuff, of course. But then there are a million jobs when you do step up to super alloys, when you're stepping into stainlesses, when you're stepping into titanium, when you're stepping into a lot of elite work and stuff, where that's actually not the case, and certifications matter, and I think certifications is a huge thing, because nobody trusts China to do that kind of work. When I first started, I had a good I worked for this company. They did survey equipment when I first started my company. So I was doing all these small aluminum parts for survey equipment, like the tripods on the side of the road when surveying
Land surveying
stuff. And I just had all these little cool parts and stuff. And it was the material was expensive, but I negotiated blanket contracts with my customer, and I explained to them the only way that I'm going to get the price down is to get the material down. And then, so I got like 18-month contracts that I just have releases monthly, which gave me the support to just look at and get more jobs from them because I got my price down. And then going to the the material company and saying, hey, based on this, and if this leaves, then, our contract would leave, but I will create a contract with you with that material, but we need to get a price down here. So based on volume, I was able to get some crazy prices. So aluminum pieces, they were just cents, you know what I mean? It really cost me nothing,
Yeah.
And I figure out ways to do it in my machine where I wasn't people want to charge 60 cents per saw cut or something like that. It's like, I can't pay 60 cents per cut. But then instead of putting a vise and having 2 parts, I put like a whole strip. And then I would just right at the beginning, it would just go, you know what I mean? With an end mill, and then just, and just do its thing. So I was cutting it in the CNC machine, and then I was only putting 1 piece in instead of 30 pieces, which was you know what I mean? So you just figuring it out. If you start looking at every single variable and single thing you can do, and you cut, the end product ends up being. But a lot of these guys that complain about prices and they don't have the imagination or the creativity to truly look at just every level. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a lot of that stuff makes a lot of sense with production work, especially. Yeah. And I try to implement things like that, but I do run into trouble. We do high mix, low volume. So most of our orders be 1 to 5 pieces. A big order for us is 20 parts.
Yeah.
And so it makes it difficult to implement, okay, let's set up a fixture for this job, because then you're buying money or you're buying material for a fixture. You're buying all the Mighty Bite stuff for a fixture or whatever you end up using.
Yeah.
So it almost doesn't even make sense. So you still kind of have to do it the long way, even though there are better ways to do it.
Yeah.
And kind of, I don't know, you can come up with methods doing things on a multi-axis machine and just tabbing the part off, so you don't have to worry about any work holding it all, and it's a one and done. So there's still ways to shorten it, but I don't know, it's difficult whenever you're doing the high mix, low volume.
No matter what you do, there's a million ways that you can change and adjust and stuff. I think we used to do all the little tube fittings, and the tube fit, tube fittings, in automotive and aerospace and stuff. You have all these different types of tubes, crazy tolerances and tenths, or thousandths, and all these different diameters and stuff. And SpaceX used to give me they give me 80 different sizes. So it'd be one of those crazy prints where you just have all of the different sizes, and it would be
oh yeah,
item 1, 2, 3.
5, you know what I mean? And the only thing it would change would be the diameters and the different things and stuff. And then you'd have 3/16 stainless, titanium, and different things. And so for a while, I was charging them $300 a piece, you know what I mean? And they were paying it, right? For just this tube fitting, this 3/16 stainless, because they only gave me 3 of them. So I'm just hey, if the setup is 10 hours and I'm running, 3 parts, but if I'm running 30, then it's divided by, the 10 hours. If I'm running 100, it's this and this. But through communication and everything, finally, I came up with a plan to say, hey, all right, you guys give me 2 fittings, and then for 6 months I don't have 2 fittings, and you're giving them to other people, and you guys are paying them crazy money, you're paying me crazy money. So how about I actually dedicate this machine to 2 fittings, and I'm just going to standardize all my tools and put in all the bore heads in here. I have a system that makes perfect parts, and therefore I can just jump from one part to one part to one part, and I will charge you for running 200 parts, even though it's 55538. You know what I mean? And then by taking on the work and talking to the customer, and as I say in a lot of my videos, digging my roots into them, because now they're getting such a good price and we have a system in place that nobody else is even bringing to the table, then I secure that work and I create it like its volume. So if you're running a bunch of, you know, parts that are like 20 parts, 20 parts, 20 parts, then it's, and you have like multiple machines, and you're like, hey, if it's, you know, a bunch of them are 316 stainless, it's like, I'm going to only run the stainless in this machine, and I'm going to standardize my tooling. I'm going to make sure anybody that programs them, you know, runs off the exact same templates, that so that they are programming in seconds instead of like minutes and hours, and trying to figure it out and create a standard on every way we cut every single part, so it's the best way. But again, you just fine tune it and stuff. And the thing I preach, the thing that I've been able to do well in business is communication with customers, man. I talk to them about the process. I talk to them about the why. You know what I mean? I let them in and show them why we're solving their problems and stuff, and they love it. And I'm like, if you want me to come in at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, you just got a line down situation, like 100%, I'll take care of it and stuff. And you just build that reputation and consistent work, and then you beg for gravy later. Hey,
right. Do you have some stories about when those attempts went wrong, and you had to fire a customer or something like that?
I've gone through my trials with different customers and stuff, but I've had great customers too. I mean, I think that's one of the worst things you can do is just quote work because you need work and not actually. I tell machinists, like, if you walk in and just take the money and take the job, then shame on you. You need to interview that person, look at where that company is going, and actually fight for a great opportunity and understand what the stairs are, and people respect you for that. So I've always looked at the industries and said, hey, you know, what what is the future? If everything slows down, you know what I mean, what's going to keep moving and different things and stuff. But I've been fortunate that the company I was telling you about, Seco, they were out of Redding, California and stuff. They were giving me so much work and stuff. And in my first year in business, I just, you know, I went from borrowing money for gas because I had $1,500 child support coming out of my net when I was running somebody else's company, to, you know, making $1 million machining parts in my first 10 months. You know what I mean? So like that company was one of the reasons I was able to do that, is because of just the quantities and things I did. But by the first year, the end of the first year, they came to me and said, hey, our plant in Mexico's done, and we're going to start push all manufacturing down to Mexico and stuff. But it was like a, you know, I don't push on anybody else, but like, you know, I'm huge as far as the Lord, man. And I just feel like the very next day I get a call from Schilling Robotics, and Schilling Robotics is like, hey, can you come down and we do ROVs? And I'm like, what? You know, and I had no idea who they were, and I went down there. So, and then my whole life changed from this one meeting that I had with these guys, where they basically showed me the craziest titanium, craziest parts for these ROVs. They go to the bottom of the ocean, and basically showed me what they were doing with this guy Dylan. And in that quarter, they did $3 million with them, and vendors were like scrapping their parts and not, you know, giving parts on time. And they had heard that we were the best around, and the guy just was like, if you're as good as they say you are, then we'll do this for you. And literally that day changed my life. And but that's it, right? I lost one opportunity just to have another door open and stuff. Right. And then when that door was slowly closing, you know, because that company was selling to FMC and there's other things, and we're headed into the great, you know, crisis, money banking crisis of 0809. Then that's right when 2007, I read an article about Elon Musk and him making rockets, and I was like, I want to work for this guy. And so it's like levels, you know what I mean? If I hadn't worked for the subsea, I could have never worked for Elon, and I wasn't good enough to work for Elon. But it's only because I did so much titanium, high level precision parts for the subsea industry, all robotic arms and stuff. They're picking things up, welding, things on the bottom of the ocean floor, but it's just like levels,
How do you get in with these customers? How did you make that happen day one? How did you get in with these customers day one? How did you make that happen?
So today is actually a lot easier, right? Because you can literally go on, you can just go online and go to LinkedIn and look at any company that you see in your area that you're willing to work for, and put in buyer and company and actually, figure it out.
Yep.
Back then I had no idea. Like it wasn't like that, So I actually I read the article, and it's a cool story because we were making all the subsea parts and stuff, but I read the article. I was like, I want to make parts that go to space. Like, I want to work for this guy. And he had just sold PayPal and started, funded SpaceX and stuff. And then I wrote him a letter, man. I wrote him a letter. And then I remember I talked to my wife, and my wife, we prayed over the envelope, and I sent it, and nothing. So I just was like, you know what? I'm going to actually send letters to this guy. Every Friday, I'm going to send letters to this guy. And I sent letters to him every Friday, and I kept changing the date, same letter, like literally months, and zero. I just never lost. Like, you got to have tenacity in this game, man. You know what I mean? So I called down to SpaceX. I made friends with the women in the office, and I sent them chocolates, and I just was like, telling my story, I came from nothing, and this and this, and this is the company. I sent them pictures of parts that I was running, like titanium parts and Inconel parts and stuff, and then nothing. And then finally, the lady gave me the guy who actually gives out the work and stuff, gave me that guy's email. So then I started messing with him for like weeks and nothing. And then literally, me and my wife, we remember the day, like we came in, I opened up my email, and it was just SpaceX. They literally just gave me like 30 quotes, and I quoted, and I started working for them, and I was not good enough.
Really?
I was not good enough, man. But you know what? They made it difficult because they had all these like young 24-year-old guys that didn't understand tolerance. They didn't understand that if you create a box going down, that you have to have a radius. It can't be a sharp corner. You know what I mean? They just didn't understand the mechanics of manufacturing and stuff. So, they didn't understand that they'll call out MagnaPlate and say, hey, we want a 8 finish on MagnaPlate, which is simply impossible. When you tell them it's impossible, they're like, oh, well, so-and-so, said they're going to do it. You know what I mean? And you're scared to keep your work and stuff. But we just went through all of those different levels and stuff. And, but yeah, we worked with them for 12 years, and which today, like if you look at like our channel, like cool titanium parts, Inconel parts, just in the last weeks, we've just been putting out like a lot of machining. And we always put speeds and feeds and how to do it. And these types of videos, you follow it to the T. You can just simply go quote that work, and you can use exact speeds and feeds and depths of cuts and tools that we use and actually be successful on it and stuff.
The stuff you show now on YouTube is all for YouTube. Are you guys designing the parts and just making how you want, or do you guys still have customers?
The company went from making space sparks and all that to creating a TV show.
Yep.
What a lot of people don't know is the money that we made from making parts was what actually funded the show. Then over time, we actually got sponsors and got people to believe in us and stuff like that. And then we went to the social. Then I literally, somebody put my eagle up on YouTube. We're having millions of like people watching our TV show, and I wasn't even thinking about social media like in 2013, and somebody put our eagle that we machined up on, one of my guys did, and it's like, oh, it got 1 million views and stuff. And regardless of the negativity, I actually went in and was like, oh, there's actual machinists here. And every video you put up, there's actual machinists here. I just fell in love with the speed of social media. I fell in love with like being able to communicate with all of it. And although, there's some negative, like there's so much positive, people want to talk about parts. But it became a time where I'm making SpaceX parts, I'm making Blue Origin parts. I'm like a lot of people don't know the B3 engine, 70%, at least 70% of the machining for the B3 engine, all the prototypes pretty much. and then 70% ongoing until they could get their own facility. We actually have the contract and stuff. So we were doing some crazy work. And but it's like from all of these aerospace contracts to doing the TV show to doing, now jumping into social media, and then all of a sudden, like the academy just happened out of nowhere, out of like necessity. Like I was doing the show and I was in San Quentin prison, and I started looking at, like, when I was doing the TV show, and I'm gonna get to the point, you know what I mean? But like as I was doing the TV show, I was traveling around, and every time I'd go, I'd go to Macomb College in Detroit, or I'd go to different places, and on my own, I'd be like, oh, what's the machining school around here? And I'd always go to the machining school, and I was like, you always had a teacher who's a hero, but he's making 50 grand, and he's just not up with the latest technique. They're running high speed and the worst tools possible, and they're in a whole semester they're making 3 or 4 parts. And I would ask the questions, why do you guys only make these parts? And well, everything gets donated to us, and this, we don't have funding and stuff. So like when it came to the San Quentin thing, and they asked me for help in that, of course I knew it was a God thing, because who better to go speak life into men with conviction than somebody that used to be in where they're at, who's now on the outside with a great family, with a great life, which was an impossible thing, but manufacturing did that for me. So being able to tell them, hey, I'm going to take you on this journey. But during that, I had to go teach them how to actually machine parts. And then I looked at every curriculum out there, and who knew? Nobody ever created legit curriculum and stuff. And just like nothing, everybody just wanted money, and nobody actually updated anything, and it was just, everything was garbage. There was nothing. Like every school has to do it on their own, and based on that teacher's talent or whoever was before them, that curriculum is that good, you know what I mean? So I've never seen legit curriculum anywhere. And so I did that whole thing. The academy started, and then the academy was great, because then all of a sudden when I was done with the show, I just was like, I woke up one morning and felt the Lord just tell me, like, put it online. So I just put it online. We didn't have the academy at that time, and I put it online. I'm just open sourced it. Anyone can use this. And people all over the world just started using the curriculum and seeing people make parts. And I fell in love with that. But as I fell in love with that you're serving and you're changing and you're bringing awareness and you're dwelling on social media. And I love the speed. The TV show is like, you can't talk about it for 6 months. You know what I mean? And we were getting each season we got better. You know what I mean? We were getting better because we were just a bunch of machinists saying, hey, we're gonna make a show like as the spindle turns, and like have fun with it. And then you actually sell it, and you're like, oh crap, now I have to make a TV show, which a lot of people don't know. Like, we never done it before. I produced myself, you know what I mean? And just hired guys and stuff, and we did it. But at the end of the day, I just ended up in a place probably around 2017 where I was having more mistakes than I should at the shop. And it was my fault, because at times I was an absentee owner, like dealing with social media or dealing with this or dealing with that. And then I'm like jumping back in with SpaceX or jumping back in and just, it just was like, it became so heavy of a burden. Instead of being, okay and good at a bunch of things, like, let's be great at something. And I looked at the social media, and I looked at our industry, and I looked at the academy and all the teachers and more students. And half of our students are active machinists in machine shops that just want to learn CAM, or they want to just learn how to program 5-axis, so they want to learn whatever and stuff. And I started looking at it, and I just had such a passion for that. And then I just made the decision. I just told my wife, I was like, I don't know how we can fund it. I don't know how all this is going to go, but I feel like this is the direction. I'm like, everyone on YouTube right now, there's a bunch of people, but like, there's nobody from like the top level of like, AS 9100, certified, like making space parts, making the craziest parts, because they're in contracts that they can't show their work. but because we have our own engineering, because we have all of the experience, because we have made 3,500 parts just for SpaceX alone, and we just understand like all of these different things, we can just make it a little bit different and stuff. Like, let's just teach what the trade truly is on a high level, and like take that top spot right there, and just go for it. And then if it fails, the worst thing that happens is we become one of the most famous machine shops in the world, and we get great contracts and stuff. So point is, I walked away from, a lot of my customers to provide room to actually teach machining. And I called SpaceX. I said, hey, we're going to start, giving up the work and stuff. And then I sold them fixtures. I sold them a machine. I sold some of our medical stuff, some of my machines. And I slowly worked myself out of work and stuff. And then just went more on the journey of teaching the trade and bringing awareness, because I believe there's nobody out there. There's a lot of people that talk about it, but there's nobody truly teaching how you actually compete. You know what I mean? It's not. We need the right regulations in place. We need the right rules and different things. But people think that you just get a machine, you turn it on, and it makes parts, and it's all garbage. So there's nobody truly teaching the legitimacy of how you truly compete and stuff. So, and it's not just me. It's me surrounding myself with great machinists from around, America that have worked for top companies and stuff. But yeah, so we took that journey, and I just made a decision that I'll still make personal parts if I can put it on camera. I'll still make parts for money if I can put it on camera and stuff. So one of the coolest things right now, you guys might have seen, Bryson DeChambeau. You seen any of our stuff with Bryson?
I have seen.
Yeah, so Bryson DeChambeau is a two-time U.S. Open champion, so he's one of the best golfers in the world. And he was making his golf clubs in Taiwan, and then he was just having struggles with his golf clubs and stuff. And these are super elite, expensive golf clubs. They're best in the world, and yet he's having problems. And they're it's perfect. And what they're doing, they're 3D printing it, and then they were welding it. And then the welding was destroying it, but nobody could measure it truly and tell him what was wrong. And then he happens to live 15 minutes from here. So he learned about us, came over here. We 3D scanned it, showed him that his parts were garbage and his 3D printing was garbage. And it might have been okay at one point, but because of the welding and the heat put into it and the thinness of the part, that he was struggling. And then we turned them on to the Lumex from Matsura and told them this is literally the one of the, for your application where you want to take, then you don't have to weld. Now you can take the entire thing as a whole and it can be hollow with 20,000 walls and everything. And because the 3D printer is printing titanium and machining at the same time and making it so it doesn't distort, you could machine a 3D print a perfect ball with the perfect infrastructure and everything inside. And so he's the customer. We actually brought all of his clubs here, and we don't show it on camera, but we have a whole production thing on machining his club. So we brought it back to America. You know what I mean?
You accept walk-in work.
Well, our walk-in work, I mean, the right type of work that I can show on camera, the right type of work. My passion is teaching now. So I filmed and had a great time and just loved talking with everyone. And that was super cool, so you get something like that. And then some guy talks shit to you online and you're just whatever, dude. You know what I mean? Whatever.
It's easy to forget all the positive when you see that one negative thing. That's the thing that sticks with you, is that one nasty comment or whatever.
It's today's politics, man. Right.
Honestly, yeah.
So you talked about teaching kids. That's your goal now, is teaching people that want to get in this trade. And on the episode with Ian, he mentioned Gabe. He teaches in Michigan.
Oh, Van Buren. Yeah.
The 5-axis program. What's the idea behind going straight to 5-axis? I just recently bought a 5-axis, and to me, it changes everything. The way you look at every part, it changes everything. But what was the idea jumping to 5-axis day one? training?
So it's not day one.
It's not? Okay.
It's not day one. So I heard you guys' conversations about manual and about different things and stuff. And so my philosophy is like, I have great respect for manual machines. I great, like when you see these tool makers and you see these crazy things and they got this Bridgeport and they got their crazy fixtures and setups and all of this stuff, like that is a complete art. That is absolutely insane. And I've met some crazy machinists. And when I ran other companies and stuff, we had contract workers for that would just make, just on our Bridgeports, just make parts and stuff. And I got crazy respect for it. But like when I started my company and my son came to work for me, I just put him right on the CNCs. When I came into the trade, I came straight into CNCs. I was on, the Prototrack, but the Prototrack could make programs. And then when I started doing it, so when people say, oh, you can't feel the machine, you can't hear the machine, you can't feel the cut, it's not even realistic, because the cut on a manual is different than the cut on a CNC. And the truth is like when the CNC is running, I can be across the shop and my ears, I know exactly when the tool's gonna go. I know exactly when we can make it go faster. I know, like, you can just hear the harmonics, or the you can truly understand it. So, feeling a Bridgeport at such slow speeds, compared to a CNC that's just not, it's completely different. So learning on a CNC and still making your jaws and making your things and, stoning your table and putting your vices on, making everything perfect and making parts and making simple parts and making a little more complicated parts and adding more tools and doing, dovetails and key cutters. And that's what we teach on the academy, like just stepping it up. So when you start with like our building blocks, which would be besides the kids series, and even our kids series has 3D models where you actually start surfacing on a 3D because it's easy. You just have to have the right teacher. So by the time you go to our building blocks, that is what kids and machinists and everyone learn on. There's 10 parts, and each one, first part starts off with, pockets, contouring, 1032 threads. Second part, rectangle again, bigger, open pockets now, quarter 20 threads, then a round part. Hey, how do you actually fix a round part on the second side? Now then you got islands, then you got engraving, then you incorporate key cutting and internal grooves in a mill, and then you do surfacing and do all these different things, and then you do an iso grid. So like you step up. So after you do that series, then we have a fixture series that teaches you how to actually like make Mighty Bite fixtures and all these different things. Now, I don't get paid by Mighty Bite. I just love the fixtures. Ever since I was like just running horizontals and just making plates and tombstones and stuff, I just used all of these different pit bull clamps and stuff because they're legit. But from there, you just keep going, man. You keep walking up, and then you make all these fixtures and stuff. So like, what's the next level? Like, let's go to 5-axis and stuff. 5-axis is simple. It's super simple if you have the right teacher. See, when I had, the prison, and I had to teach these guys and create a curriculum, I didn't have time to go teach them and show them how to like file parts for 2 years. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have time to have them do all of that. So the point was like, let's just make a part. But guess what? This part comes in bar. So we're going to go over there. We're going to cut the bar. Then we're going to use the file. We're going to actually, get the burr off, flip, boom, 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 or you can go on a gray wheel, whatever. And then this is the part per the print that we gave you, the bubble print. And then we're simply, now let's put in a vise, let's put in parallels, let's put in a stop, let's, put in the program, let's put in the tools, let's zero the tools, let's do this, let's run dry from the program that we actually went through and simulated multiple times, made sure that it's not going to crash. After we zero everything, let's run it 6 inches above the part. Guess what? Have you guys had, with 100,000 people, like right now, we have 700,000 people active, registered on our academies, right? Everyone learns for free, and people drop off and come on, of course, over the years. There's never been a video of somebody saying, I followed the curriculum and failed. I followed the curriculum and crashed. And that'll be a great video. But it's never happened because we take it systematically perfect and then we escalate it. It gets more complex, more complex, more complex, more complex. And I believe you can't learn machining running 3 parts. You have to run hundreds and hundreds of parts through repetition and stuff. So when you come to 5-axis now, everyone looks at a 5-axis and they're like, oh, this thing's like, oh, it's 5-axis. Dude, I just taught you, like, hey, there's ball screws, there's a table, the ball screw moves, the table moves, the ball screw moves, the table comes down. It's literally has no brains. You put the tools in, you have to tell it where the part is. Let's make a 0 here, let's make a 0 here. If you screw it up, it's your fault. You know what I mean? But it's actually pretty simple. Then you move in 100, move in your excess, blah, blah, blah. It's simple. Okay, now we're on a 5-axis. This is actually even better. What do you, it's still X, Y, and Z, but guess what now? Now we're rotating. It just needs to know where the roof is. So just show where the roof is. You know what I mean? And just show where Z's at. Move it, pivot, create your plane, show where the roof is, create space. It's just not that hard. But the people that run schools, they've never done it. The people that make the rules have never done it. So they're over there saying this is complicated because they know that if you make a wrong move, you can cause damage to a $20,000 spindle, and they're scared of it. It's simple. Don't get ahead of it. This is what you need to do, and do it. So I went to Dean. I said, I've never asked you for anything. Can we get Gabe? Gabe is one of the best teachers in the nation. He has the most eyes on him. He uses our curriculum. His kids make parts, and I've talked to the companies that are hiring these kids, and the kids are coming out better than many of their 5 to 10 year guys because they know how to program, fixture, all this stuff. I'm like, I want to get them on 5-axis in their senior year after they've done everything else. I wanted to get them on 5-axis, and can we just give them a 5-axis machine? We'll do all this content around it. It'll be great for DN. You got kids running it, and they said, so I don't know if you guys, I've talked about this before. I don't want to go too deep, but they said, yep, we're going to give them the machine. We're going to do this. We'll do this, blah, blah, blah. They ended up lying, pulling out. They told Gabe they were going to give it, and they still didn't. And they went to Gabe when I wasn't there and told Gabe, well, truth is, 5-axis is not for kids. It's not for 5-axis. It's not for high schools and stuff. So that was, so then I ended up going over to YCM, and I told them that story. YCM gave them the machine, and in the summer, Gabe got the machine. Gabe went, used our curriculum, and if you actually look at all the parts, his kids are making 5-axis. Right now, it's like more than 3+2.
Yep.
But they're making parts, man, and with no crashes or anything because the curriculum is sound. And every day they spend on that machine, they get used to it. And the kids are like, it's really not that difficult. It's just like a 3-axis. You just have to do a few new things. But now you can be like, okay, let's approach it here, then flip it, and let's actually now it's the strategy changes, but we can get 90% done.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's working, man.
Yep.
It's working. So regardless what people want to say, those kids will come out of high school, and instead of making the same amount of money Starbucks pays or less, meaning kids come out of high school knowing machining in most programs, and they're getting paid $15 an hour. And it's the truth. You know what I mean? You can go to Starbucks, you can go to McDonald's and get $18 an hour, $20 an hour. You know what I mean? So it's a joke. Gabe's kids are coming out, they can make $25 an hour. You know what I mean? They are making 5-axis parts. They can actually make more than that if they sell themselves, and they show, depending on how many parts they actually make, you know? And that's why I tell them, like, I have these kids make, everyone has briefcases, you know? And I'm just like, you can take a resume, but nobody's going to care. They're going to look at you, they're going to look at your age, they're going to say, like, we're paying him entry level. But then take a briefcase, cut out the foam, have all your parts, show them, talk about the technique, show them the parts that you actually made, show them what you can do. You can design, program, and fixture and run 5-axis, and you can make some good money, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Starting off.
It's exactly like you said. I just bought a 5-axis in October, and I was a little nervous about it. I got a horizontal, but once I started programming, it was like, this isn't hard at all. This is easy.
Yeah.
I'm not programming any different than I did before. The only thing I'm doing is strategy. Now I'm figuring out which side am I doing first, and then you use work in progress programming to make sure you're not cutting air, and then it's just more strategy of, sorting your tools. What's going to run first? If you got cross holes, you got features that cross each other, just which one do you need to run? I'm running a part right now that's a manifold. It's got 11 ports, and they're all intersected holes. So it was just a matter of which hole do I do first? Which hole is going to hit that and walk? And it was super easy to figure it out. It wasn't hard at all.
And then you can deburr it at the same time,
Yep.
because now you can go back through every single hole to go retouch as little things flip up and stuff. But machining is difficult because there's so many levels to it, and depending on what shop you walk into, you know what I mean, and who's going to teach you, and different things. But at the same time, it's so vast. It is so much. It is like there's like level after level after level, and I just think it's the greatest thing ever.
Well, let me ask you this, Titan. A lot of what we've talked about is, the new generation, right? The kids in high school, machinists that have been in the trade 5 years, 10 years, that want to accelerate their career. What advice do you have for someone that is, say, in their 50s, they've been machining for 30 years, but they've kind of hit the ceiling, right? They've worked at a few companies, they know manual, they know CNC, things like that, but they just can't seem to get anywhere as far as pay, as far as job satisfaction. What would you recommend they do?
So I get asked this by a lot of different people and stuff, and it's hard because there is a struggle, man. And we can glorify manufacturing and we can say how awesome it is, but the truth is, it is that awesome, but most shops are dirty and grungy. Most shops are not elite. They don't have the mindset to put in place what's needed to actually excel. You know what I mean? And today, when I was talking about the AS9100 and the importance of writing out your processes and the documentation and all of it, I said you can do all of that, but it comes to leadership to make it a standard in your shop and let people know that they're not going to be doing their jobs if they don't do it. You know what I mean? And therefore there are great running shops that are like doing it good, and there's mediocre shops, and there's just shops that suck because they're still using high speed. How can I'm not even making money. Like, how would I jump to carbide? It's so expensive, blah blah blah, and stuff. But it's just like you have to do a reinvention and a mindset shift when you're that shop, and you have to look at certain customers, and you have to come up with a game plan. Okay, we're going to put all of these different things in place. We're going to do it like we're going to step our game up, and we're going to quote it, this way. We're going to do an NRE charge to pay for some of the tooling in it and stuff, and like try it. And you would be amazed. Like, I have so many companies that come to me, and the owners, and I'm touching the owner first because a guy like you're talking about needs to be at the right company, but he needs to have the right mindset also. But one of the biggest joys that I have is like just legit, 50, 60-year-old guys who had a company for 30 years, and they come to me and they're just like, Titan, I just like can't, I gotta like tell you this crazy story. And we were running all these parts and this, and we struggled, and we were like laying off employees and this, and then we went to this tool because all our parts are this, and we ended up like dropping 50% of our runtime and this, and a year later we're we're hiring, we're buying more machines, we're doing, and it was simply because of that shift that we did, and we learned it in your videos and stuff, and like I'm like, dude, that is crazy, but it happens all the time and stuff. So like, if you're 50 years old, you like all the videos that we have and all the different things that we have, it's free. The academy is free. You know, there's simple stuff and there's complex stuff. So the more, and a lot of the softwares that when we start teaching on softwares and stuff, there's free versions or versions for less than $100 that you can actually learn all of it on and stuff. But you just have to start investing in yourself and your knowledge, and then just taking it in, like taking it in and just changing your mindset, and then going and selling your company on like, hey, we have this material and we're running it like this. Here's this video and they're running it like this, you know what I mean? And like, you know, they're talking about how many parts they got and how long the tool lasted, which is something we actively say. So per earlier, sometimes we just murder material. Whoa, and we just show you like it didn't break. Let's back it off, depending on the machine, depending on your torque, your power, this and this. Like, but still, let's go, you know, 4 times more, you know. You take those videos, you show them to the right people, and you fight for it. And I've seen it happen a million times where all of a sudden they're taking these chances and they're changing their process, and they're starting to make money. And as companies and owners make money, some of them, not all, but some of them just start loving their shop again and loving their guys again, and not feeling dragged down. Because as an owner, when you're not making money and you're having to make payroll and everyone's still complaining about payroll, but you're not making anything, you're barely surviving, like it can be an absolute nightmare, you know. But that's it, man. You just got to fight to grow. And if you're not growing as a person and in your own mindset and your own talent, and you're not able to actually inspire the company, because every single company, the owner or the leader or whoever's going to love an attitude saying, hey, I've been doing this the same way, and I want to advance the skill for the company, help the company move. With that attitude, people are like, hey, yeah, let's do this. You know what I mean? Let's actually do it. And if it doesn't work, then you go to a different company. Let them know I've been in this trade for this amount of years, and I want to do great parts. I want to do more precise parts. I want to do this and this. I want to run these tools at these speeds and feeds so we can make money. And the company that I come from is doing it the same old way. And a company will listen to that attitude and be like, okay, I'll give you a shot because I love your attitude. I need more of that. You know what I mean? And you got to sell yourself. You know, you got to go out there and like sell yourself, but you got to put the work in.
Nobody's going to make it happen for you.
Exactly. You know, when I started programming, I came into with like, it's crazy. Like I was a head programmer, but it was, I was machining all the parts, and I was aggressive. I was saving time. I was doing, within 6 months, I was doing all that. And then the owner of the company, he came to me and he's like, his son Kevin, who was like the head programmer and stuff, was like leaving. They got in this fight, and the son's like going to leave and stuff. And then he's like, you know, I've seen, you know, all these machinists. I can go hire somebody to go, you know, program, but I'm gonna have Kevin spend his last 2 weeks with you to teach you how to program. And we were doing surf cam at that time. And he's like, I'll give you a raise when you make your first part, and when you make it program on your own consistently, I'll give you like another raise. And the first day he taught me how to do it, I just got it. And then I started programming, and then Kevin took the company, ended up buying the company from his dad. And he's like, shit, you're running with it. I'm just going to let you freaking do it. So not everybody gets the opportunity that I got, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like I got the opportunity because I asked for books, man. And I was like, you know, I was hungry. I was just dedicated.
What's your CAM software of choice as a programmer? If you could have any CAM software. I mean, you can't have any CAM software, but
truthfully, like people were like, Titan, you should, like, my wife was like, how can you create your own? And I was like, can't do that, you know. But I do know that, you know, a lot of the toolpaths are purchased. Yep. You know what I mean? And you know, SolidCAM is the same as MasterCAM, you know, and different things, you know. But
Quick story. Funny you brought that up. I actually shared a post on the Titan Facebook site about Module Works. Explain.
Okay.
There's always people arguing on there. This
Yeah,
software is better. This software is better.
yeah.
So I shared a big post about it on there, explaining what Module Works does, and I got kicked out of that group a few years ago. I ended up reaching out to you, and you apologized and let me back in. But there are so many people that don't understand.
I'm not all bad. Come on.
There are so many people that don't understand that ModuleWorks is the engine behind all of it. So it's the interface you see that changes it, and it's, to me, it's a personal opinion. It's what works for you is the best, which is my question. Which is your preference of CAM software?
So so each software is completely different, and yet they're so much alike, and it really depends on the parts. You were just talking about learning 5-axis, and you're like, oh, it's not that hard, and we were both talking. Everyone wants to look at 5-axis and think you got to go full simultaneous, and yet that is the goal is not to do full simultaneous, because once you do full simultaneous, now everything is in motion and everything slows down.
Yep.
Because now the table has to be in sync with the movement and stuff. So you want a 3+2, put it in a position, get it in the best positions as possible, any angle, and get as much work done as quick and machine quick and do all that and stuff. But when you get to super high level 5-axis, then that's where fusion stops, right? So you guys probably, I don't know how much you guys know, but like, I'm the one that brought fusion out. I'm the one that I did a partnership with Carl Bass, and when they first were purchasing the companies to put into fusion and stuff, and then but they had big plans for it, and it just came to a place where once Carl Bass left Autodesk, they knew they were not going to make the money, and all of this technology that they had purchased other companies, super high level companies for, that they were going to dump into it. They decided not to dump into it, and it just became that kind of version that is good for the 80%. You know what I mean? I think Mastercam and SolidCam are pretty damn close to each other. They're different, but truthfully, they have. If you look at programming 5-axis, I probably, and the more difficult stuff, I like Mastercam. If you don't have my experience, you have less experience, but you in hard materials, SolidCam is probably pretty damn good because of the way they do their eye machining and they do their materials. So you can basically put in the tensile strength of the material, and it goes in at the beginning, and it gives you speeds and feeds, and then you go level of those speeds and feeds. So when you're into Inconel or just places that you've never been before, people with not that much experience can have a lot of success in that, because it's selecting the speeds and feeds. And something that I wouldn't like is that it adds too many passes and too many of these, but it keeps you safe.
Yep.
And because I know what I want, you want to override everything. You know what I mean? Because it's like, shit, it's only 50,000. I'm just going to go do this and stuff. So I think everyone has its issues, and it depends on it truly depends on the parts that you're making. You know what I mean? If you're just making a bunch of aluminum parts and they're all pretty damn simple, then fusion's fine. If you just want like a good cam that basically makes the 90% and like does fine, and there's a lot of guys that know how to run it in Mastercam is great, and if you don't have a lot of experience but you want to get into hard metals and stuff, then SolidCam is probably pretty damn good for you.
What'd you think of SurfCam?
SurfCam's my first love, man. SurfCam just for me, like I saw, like, so this is way back, like this is like 96, so when I started, I just like when you go onto the prototype and you just like, oh, I'm just 2x4 and then 1/2 inch tool, and you know, I'm going to climb cut, and it just does it for you. You're like, oh, okay. And then you go on like the old version before, like it was doing modeling and all that. SurfCam, it was like, oh, I'm going to do a rectangle and here's my part. You know what I mean? Kind of like a DXF or something. You know what I mean? Like, and then you just, click it and you say left side and it does it, and you say how many step overs and what's your finish pass, and then you can just say create code and it creates code, and it was like the simplest thing in the world. Like, wait, this is supposed to be hard. You know what I mean? And then it really becomes your mind, like you said, on a 5-axis to be like, oh, when do I drill this hole? When I do this? When do I flip? When do I do that? But I always saw SurfCam as super easy. And then, and I didn't like Mastercam because I like Mastercam for the lathes way back in the day and stuff. And even when I got my company at the very beginning, I was running SurfCam on the mills, and then before I did Fusion, but I was running Mastercam on the lathes and stuff because I liked Mastercam on the lathes. But one of the things I didn't like early back in the day on Mastercam was their subs. So I used to do subs on everything because we ran a lot of different parts, and I didn't like an M98. So an M98 pulls up basically a program, a program with a O, like a O in front of it and stuff. So everything's separated as separate programs. So I like an M97 where it actually put everything in the same, so I could simply just go, down, up in the program and like keep it super synced and stuff. And then there was just a bunch of different maneuvers you had to do almost on every tool on Mastercam back in the day. And I just thought, like, man, this is like, I just go in on SurfCam, and I learned how to change my own. I learned how to like write the posts and all that for SurfCam, because one day I just went in there, I started like looking at how everything was set, and I started looking at like the rhythm of it, and I just kind of got it, and I just started being able to adjust everything and stuff. And yeah, man. So I was short, they just didn't. They got purchased, and they just didn't take it to the. Yeah. They didn't keep going. You know what I mean?
I ran SurfCam about 10 years ago. I struggled with it. I learned in SolidWorks with CamWorks, so I've always been in SolidWorks. And I worked at a company, and it was SurfCam.
If that's the world you live in, and you're just a SolidWorks guy, and that you've never done anything else, then CamWorks will be good. You know what I mean? But ease of use, just posts all of their, like SurfCam was just so easy. But it depends on the type of parts you're running. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I started on CamWorks, like you said. It's my first love, and it's just, to me, it's the way it functions it's what I know. So it's easy to me. It makes sense. And it does everything I need to do, and the feature recognition is great.
Yeah. 100%.
I started with SolidCam, actually, and I loved it. It was great. Every software has its flaws. That's the thing that we always talk about on this show is every software is going to have its pros and its cons. And it, like you said, Titan, it really comes down to your preference, because I've since moved to Fusion, and I like Fusion. There's things I miss from SolidCam. iMachining is a big one. There's some things about Fusion that bug me. There's some things I like, and it's just, you just got to pick your poison.
There's little tricks that you can do that nobody knows. You know what I mean? Like you can fake out the material by calling it, way weaker than it is or something, which will force a bigger cut. And then you can have different, like you could have aluminum, you could have like 6 different types of aluminum and make it so the program's like, oh, this is nothing, I'm just going to take a big cut. You know what I mean? Because, you know what I mean? Otherwise, taking a 50,000th cut around and it's going 3 times around, you're like, you know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah. I do have to say, iMachining is definitely one of the most powerful tool paths out there, just because of the control. But like you said, if you need to actually dial it in, it can be tricky for sure. Yeah. What was your first machine, Titan, that you actually owned?
My first machines was I got 2 VF2 SS's, and then I got 2 SL10s, one with a bar feeder. Yeah. First sport.
Nice.
Yeah, and I don't know. You guys see my guy Keith that works for me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Keith is like number one Haas salesperson in the world. I bought a bunch of Haas's when I ran other companies and built different companies and stuff. I went through like a journey to learn how to do it before I did it on my own and stuff. And but yeah, he sold me my first 4 machines when I had no money. So he was like just a super good friend of mine. I used to love when he used to come into my shop when I was running this other company and stuff. And then they pretty much screwed me, and I had no money and no opportunities. And I just like I'm done working for other people. And I contacted him and I said, hey, I'll meet you down behind Jack in the Box in Rockland, California. And I want to quote 4 machines. He's like, you got money? I was like, nope. I'm like, but I was like, but I'll get it, and stuff. And Haas wouldn't finance me. And then I ended up getting an investor and stuff. And then Haas wouldn't finance me. And then Keith, when I was working at this other company before that, I used to just run all kinds of crazy stuff on the Haas's, and he would always go like, how do you do this on a Haas? And I keep crazy tolerances and do these different things and stuff, and just fixture and big old pieces, 17.4, and just getting after it in the lathes and stuff. And he was always tripping out. But then what's cool is he would always go to Bill Selway, who's like one of the biggest legends ever in this industry. You guys familiar with Selway Machine Tools?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the West Coast. So Bill is passed, but one of the greatest in industry, But he would always go to Bill and then be like, always saying, oh, this guy up here, and he's running all these crazy parts, and he built this company and for this person and blah blah blah. And he'd always talk to him about him. So like when I couldn't get the loan from Haas, he actually went to Bill Selway and said, hey, he has a great business plan. He's got this and this. He's the best I've ever seen. You should talk to him and stuff. And Bill called me up. He said, what's your business plan? I said, I got 25 customers. I got this and this. I got, at that time I had I had $50,000 that I got from this old guy that worked for me on the night shift on the previous. And then
he gave you 50 grand.
Gave him 50 grand, man. And he that's a crazy story right there. Yeah, Bill basically looked at me or on the phone and just said, hey Ty, he said you're the best he's ever seen, and I've never seen anybody do what you do on the Oscars. So I haven't done this in 9 years. I'm gonna personally co-sign your loan for you and guarantee it to the bank. And tell me where to drop off the machines. Before that, I had worked for 4 years at a company called Neji Precision up in Colfax, California. I walked in there and they had all manual machines, and they were working for Coherent. Coherent is a huge laser company. You guys might have heard of it. They give a huge amount of work now to people and stuff. And they had all kinds of different jobs, but they were doing it all on manual machines. And CNCs were, they knew they had to go to CNCs. And
what year was this?
Huh?
What year was this?
So this would be 2001.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2001, because I started my company in 2005. Like late 2004, I was building out my shop, and then we started right at the beginning of the year. So I just celebrated 2021 year, something like that. So but yeah, I went in and the owner's like, hey, so CNC? And I said, yes. And right before that, I had gone into business with somebody who had machines, and I had the talent to get work. And then we created this partnership, and we built this, and I ended up bringing all of this applied work, and I brought this stuff in, and I was supposed to get 10% of everything. And then literally we ended up building this thing together, but it was this guy's company, not my company. And but working with this guy who was a great machinist, we built this whole shop together and drywalled everything and painted everything and designed everything and looked at the process of all of it. And by then I had a lot of experience, but like building a company from the ground up was like huge. And then I ended up bringing so much work into that company. We ended up purchasing 8 Haas machines, and each one was running nonstop. And it was on this part. This is like important because it was on this part, and it had this cutout in it that took it down to like 100,000s, and then it had another cutout, and the bottom had a flatness call out of like 5,000s across this 17-inch part, but they were buckling. So I'm at Applied Materials and this place called S&R back in the day, which is like 1 million square feet of like semiconductor machining and stuff. They had just pallets of scrap, and then I quoted this job right after we had put this guy's machines into the shop right next to my house, and then I quoted it 80, like I was like $93, and the guy comes back to me, it's like $93. Like, take another look at it. You sure you can do this part? I look at it, and then I'm like, yeah, 90. He's like, put $250, and I'll give you your first order for 1,000 pieces. I was like, I go back and look, I'm like, okay, you know, and $250,000, you know, and then it was like order after order after order, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. I get 10%. I got, you know, $1,800 child support. The guy stops paying me, and I programmed that thing so good. I made it so flawless. I had kids from the church youth group running the parts. Anyone could run the parts. It was flawless, and would keep me 5/10 across the backside. It was just like a rough finish, and just we just dialed it, and all of a sudden, why pay me? My hourly plus the 10%. So he started mistreating me. I went to this crazy thing with him, and just it was like almost went down the darkest. I actually, after that, I went through the darkest time in my life, literally. But I walked out of that shop, man, and I walked into this other company that had manual machines. But I got all that experience of building that company. So even though I was so angry at the world, and, you know, ended up getting divorced from, you know, my ex, and my whole life spiraled, I got all of this experience in the machine. And then I went over here, and then I changed this company from manuals to all CNCs, and made it super successful. And this guy gave me a contract that said, in 4 years, I'm going to move to Texas, and this is going to be your company. You just send me a check, because I have no kids that can run it. I have nothing. So you will be my retirement. And after 4 years, and Keith coming in every single, you know, week, coming in saying hi to me and stuff, and watching all that I did at that company and stuff. And after 4 years, the guy came to me and said, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I found a buyer for the company. I could not have done this without you. I put you in the contract. You're going to make, you know, way over 6 figures. And, but I'm going to sell the company. I walked away with 0, which is when I met Keith at Jack in the Box. And I was like, trying to get funding. And he's like, I told Keith, I was like, I'll find something. And I had all these people that knew my talent. Like, everyone would say, like, you know, and I had a lot of people that would just be, you know, man, you need to have your own shop. You need to have your own shop, you know? And it's like, dude, I come from nothing. How would like, you know, $1,000 is like unattainable to me, you know? So I had this guy, Jack Weaver, on my night shift, and he was, I paid him more than he was worth, just because I trusted him. He was such a good man, you know, older guy, you know, losing his sight, his hands, but he's a great manual machinist and stuff. So he kind of like oversaw the, you know, the team and stuff, and he would just run contract work and stuff for us. And he would always come to me, and I'd have 4 machines running. I'd be sitting there. I'm like, hey, Jeff. And he'd be over there in this little cubicle running his manual with chips all on the ground, and he's over there doing his thing. And I'll just be talking crap to him, like, dude, you sweating, man? You look like, and I got 4 machines just like, and he's looking at me like, what a piece of crap. You know what I mean? But I just talk crap to him, but we're just joking as machinists. And I'm just like, you need some help, man? You want me to run those parts on this? And I just thought, but one day, I mean, he would always come to me and say, Titan, you need to have your own shop. And I've never seen somebody with that talent. And he's like, you need to have your own shop. You need to have your own shop. So then all of a sudden I told him I was leaving, and I was going to go start my own company. I was looking for investors and stuff. And then he's like, hey, can we go have dinner? And I was like, okay. So we go, and he's like, hey, both my parents just died, and they left me $50,000, and it's all the money I have in the world. And he's like, I can invest it. My eyes are going. I have no retirement. I'm like, I want to give it to you, and so you can do your shop. And I was like, dude, I'm not taking your money. Like, I'm not gonna take your money, man. And then I keep trying. I got no money. And then all of a sudden, I go back to him. I was like, hey Jeff, if you give me the 50, then I'll give you back 150 inside of a few years. And he's like, okay. So I go to Bill Selway. I get the thing, this and this. The money down on the machines almost takes all the money. I literally, Jeff looks at me and is like, yeah, that's not going to be enough. So he refinances his house and pulls out $75,000 more, gives me $125,000. And his wife wants to have dinner with me and my wife Gina. So we all go to this little pasta place, and the wife is like, he's giving you everything against my will. You understand? He's giving you everything. And it's all we have to. And my wife gets in the car and she's like, are you sure you can do this? And I'm like, I am sure. So he gave me $125,000. People in the groups know who he is, because when people talk crap about me, he actually goes and tells them what's legit, because he gave me 125. I gave him 625,000 back. So I gave him $500,000 above what he gave me. He today lives 30 minutes in McKinney within a house he purchased with the money. And then he had some struggles with health, and he had some struggles with, some investments, some things that he did. And so, I don't know, 15 years ago, I was like having some beers with my wife, and we were just talking about like, holy crap, like we're making SpaceX parts, and just looking at life. And I got this thing from Jeff, from him struggling, and I just said, hey, I call him up. I said, Jeff, as long as I'm successful, man, nobody would have ever done what you've done, and I would never have what I have without you. So I'm going to give you $2,000 a month, every single month, until the day you die. And so the company gives them $2,000. I said, so long I'm profitable, $2,000 and stuff. And he's right there. You guys can look him up, Jeff Weaver.
Nice. With all that being said, if starting businesses, you've started a few other ones, what machine would you recommend to start a new business? Anyone looking to get into machining to start on their own? Mill, lathe?
So I heard you guys talking about Sile on your guys' podcast too. And so, and it's like, Haas did great for me, man. For the parts that I did, and because I had the talent to run difficult materials in it, maybe I did 3 or 4 spring passes, you know what I mean, to bring that thing in. But like, we did what we had to do, and we made great parts. We made aerospace parts, and we made parts that people said couldn't be done, you know what I mean? But we dealt with a lot of broken machines. We always had broken. I had a joke with my the guy who did my granite at my house, because he was the Haas service guy, and I'm like, what is it if me and you are such good friends? Must be like we're hanging out a lot together, you know what I mean? Me, like, he's always at my shop fixing machines. But the truth is, Haas is not what it used to be, you know what I mean? And stuff. And I was like digging Tormac, because I was like, oh, Tormac, like 14 to 25 grand, like, this, it's 2 horsepower, but if you have a part and this, but then they tried to go up bigger and then compete with Haas, you know what I mean? And that's where I took like a step back and stuff. And my vision for what I wanted to do, Haas didn't have the vision and stuff. It's funny too online, right? You're doing Haas, and everyone's like, that's not a real machine, you're not a real machinist, why don't you get on a real machine? Why don't you get on a Mori? Or why don't you get on a Makino? Or why don't you get on this? You know what I mean? And like, and then it's like, Haas sucks. And then you go and you get onto a Mori and you get onto a Makino, and they're like, why'd you desert Haas? Help. You're mistreating them. And I'm like, wait, they didn't believe in what I wanted to do. And they just took everything I said and they're doing it themselves. So it's not my fault. You know what I mean? It's like, and there's levels to the game. So I did a million videos with Haas. I've talked to you guys everything. Let's just keep leveling up and show all levels. Let's show you on a Makino A81. Let's show you on DMG. Let's show you on Doosan or DN. You know what I mean? Let's show you on everything. And not to be like that, I don't want to run the same thing forever and stuff. But, the long story short is like, depends on the application, depends on the material, right? Because based on the material, the horsepower and torque matters. And this last, so for 2 years now, we've sold machines, and we jumped on with the Sao machines. It's made in China, like Tormac is made in China, you know what I mean? But it's assembled with mostly Japanese, German, it's got Schneeberger castings. It's got like, stainless ways, covers there. You know what I mean? Where you have other people going to like garbage, and stuff. Then they just put like the best of the best put together. And then lately it's just become like a great machine that's like $39,000, $42,000. You option it up and it's $46,000. And our 2 years ago when I asked Keith to come over here and stuff, and I was like, hey, like I don't want to ask people for money. I want to like earn our money. And we have such a community. It's like instead of asking people for money and doing these different things, I want to be able to run any tool I want. I want to be able to I just want to like kind of make a shift. So like, let's go into distribution and stuff and like, sell things that we believe in and stuff. And so Keith came on, and then one of the things we brought on the lowest end was the Sile. And the first year we sold 87 Sile machines. And it was 87 guys that look just like you, each one of you, who you can talk to online, who show their machines, and they started their machinists with a dream of starting their own company, but they can't afford this, they can't afford that. They get this machine and they're running stainless steel, they're running titanium, they're running aluminum, they're making parts intense. They're like hitting, and they're running it out of their garage or the little space that they got. And that's my thing. So when people ask about like, oh, why is Titan doing Sile and stuff, it's like, look, now Haas's can't be they can't put made in America anymore, because more than 50% of their part is from China. You know what I mean? Like all of these companies, you think Makino's just made over here, but then they're made in Taiwan. You know what I mean? Like some, and everything's like sourced in all these different places, and it's super sad. I wish you had more in America and stuff, but and the story is like more people are making parts in America now. More shops are rising up because of the affordability and the entry level that they can get a good machine at now. And then if you look at YCM, that what we've done recently is we've looked at machines that people don't know about, therefore that we can have an impact in them. I mean, the thing about YCM, they're so legit. Anybody that has been on one, I don't know if any of you guys been on a YCM?
I have. I was going to say, I ran the last shop I worked at before I went on my own. They had YCMs. I had never heard of them. Ran them for years, and it was probably by far one of the best machines I've ran. It
is rock solid.
There's not very many shops that have them. I think it's probably the biggest underdog machine out there that people don't know about.
Yeah, and they didn't have the marketing, they didn't have the visibility, and then the shops that have them have the doors closed, nobody sees them. And that's the thing about manufacturing. Me trying to do a TV show, like just pull back the doors, like show manufacturing, like show the world that we actually make stuff. You know what I mean? And stuff. But when I actually started really looking at the machines, and you look like they have their own foundry, like they make their own castings. They hand scrape everything. They like level to level to level to spindles to everything. They do everything in house, and then you have the top companies coming to this, like, to Taiwan to try to get there. So a lot of Taiwan is actually a huge machine tool building community that a lot of people don't know about and stuff. And they make DMG motors over there. They make different things over there. So they've become so good. And but then when you look at the machine, I mean, 65 grand. You know what I mean? So like, I'm like, depending on your work and this, 40 something grand, you know what I mean? 65 grand, you option it out. Yeah, you probably maybe 70 grand, but for a damn good machine.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's actually, yeah, maybe, they, so when you actually look at YCM and Haas, like YCM a lot of times will actually be less money. You know what I mean? But then Haas gives different deals and stuff, but they're right in line. But if you look at how they're built,
the company I worked at, we had 6 of them. I think the oldest one was like a 2005, and then when I worked there in 2016, they had bought a new one pretty recently. But in the years I worked there, we didn't have a tech out once. We never had issues. And when I worked at shops that had Mazaks, brand new Mazaks, 3 spindles in 3 months.
Yeah,
they were down all the fucking time.
Yeah,
but the YCMs is the only ones I've ever that I can say that. I mean, we never had issues. I mean, there were never alarms. It was never downtime.
Yeah,
and we pushed them hard too.
People that want to talk is like, look at what we put out. We keep growing. We keep adjusting and stuff. But at the same time, I keep my word. Nobody will ever tell you that I said something and it wasn't true. You know what I mean? I led you astray or anything based on my knowledge at that specific time. Like, I am just trying to teach the trade and give knowledge and do it and stuff. And you keep making adjustments, and then people change. People don't know how to get into social media. They don't know this, and you become a partner and you do it for a few years and it's good. But then it's not always me. Sometimes they're just like, hey, we're going to start doing it on our own. You know what I mean? Now we understand. We've learned a lot from you, and we think we can do it on our own. Or like DN, I mean, this is a company where like distributors were talking about bankruptcy. Like 2020, when I started with them, they were struggling, and within 3 months, I told them, you put 6 machines on my floor, I would change the company forever, because I knew Doosan was a great machine, but nobody, when you online, you have all the keyboard warriors and everyone's like, oh, what premium machine, DMG Mori, Makino, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Nobody said Doosan. Nobody said Doosan, and I just knew something. And when the thing happened with Haas, and they didn't want to, they didn't share my vision and stuff, then I had to go find somebody, right? And then I look at them and I'm just like, look, here's like YCM, here's an underdog that is actually a great machine, and but nobody talks about it. You never see it online. And then when we took it on, we had Boombastic show our first one, because like all the shows were canceled. So we're like, let's just do something online and make it like cool. And then I went on there and we machined Inconel, we machined titanium, we machined all the hard metals on it. And then I told everyone, I was like, I'm not saying it's better than DMG Mori, but it is 30% less expensive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's what I was going to say.
And that matters. And
you get a Doosan now, for a while now, a 3-axis mill optioned out, or sorry, if you compare it to a Haas, you option out a Haas the same as what a Doosan just comes with.
Yeah.
The Haas is the same price or more expensive.
Yeah.
And the Doosan is a more rigid, more powerful machine.
Way.
And you compare lathes as well, it's the same story.
Yeah.
And a Doosan lathe, in my opinion, will blow a Haas lathe out of the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would.
Yeah. So we were the hero of Doosan, right? It was like awesome, man, and you know what I mean. And we had a great relationship. But then they just were so successful, and it's somebody from outside our industry paid $2 billion for them, and then named them DN Solutions and changed out people and did different things and stuff. So when people say, "Well, Titan, you left DN," it's like, it's more to the story. You know what I mean? So coming in with YCM, it's like you were just saying, you're like, yeah, a lot of times DN Solutions is actually less expensive than a Haas, or right in there. And all of a sudden YCM is even less than that in some cases. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we're just bringing another option that nobody actually knew about, you know?
Yeah.
What is the? I mean, I know it sounds like it's a pretty reliable machine, but what is the parts availability like for a YCM?
Super good. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need them; they don't break down.
Yeah.
I know.
No, they literally have great service. They're legit like DN Solution is. They got all the parts, all the things. They're like top level. You know, there's like companies I know of that have like 100 YCMs, and yet nobody knows what it is.
One question we got on Instagram, somebody was curious, since we're talking about machines, I'll ask this now. What most profitable machine you've ever owned?
Most profitable
That's a good question.
Toyota 550 SX.
Is that a horizontal?
Really?
Toyota, yeah.
Toyota with a D.
550,
Right.
and the spindle was this big. Like spindle is like fat, and but it's based. It's based on application. Okay, so I was doing subsea work. I had a crazy contract with Schilling Robotics, and we were running so much titanium. And even in this, I can't afford the titanium. Okay, so when I went to the company, I said, okay, I will give you this price, and you give me all of your titanium, and then I'll give you this price, which is half the price of anybody else. But you purchase the material, because like there's no way I could touch that cost and stuff. So then they actually gave me the contract. It was a long-term contract. I, from Keith, bought a 550 SX on Toyota, and basically tooled it up for all of these, like, you know, if you look up Schilling Robotics, there's like a Titan arm. It's not me, but they just happen to be Titan, and it's just the whole thing is titanium, and it's actually really cool. And but I was making all of those different components and stuff, and then we got the Toyota running 116 hours a week, and it was just running and running and running and running. And then when the economy was dropping and work was leaving and all of it was dying, and I was struggling to make payroll, and I started laying off people, and I couldn't take in, you know, 09, I couldn't take a paycheck myself, because I'm like, you know, I was living off of chip money. You know what I mean? Like, because we were cutting so much titanium that at that time, I think titanium was $1.75 a pound per scrap. And basically, I supported my family for a couple years just off of chip money. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was the most, because you have a proven process, you have a long-term contract, you have a high level of expertise in a system, and nobody else can compete with you on that, and you get the long-term work, and you get the right machine that just dumps chips.
I would love to have a machine like that one day.
I think even if you have a Haas, even if you have a DN or YCM or whatever you have, you got to look at every single application. You got to look at every single company. You got to look at you just have to outthink everyone, man. You know, you got to come up with ideas. You got to come up with ideas that nobody else has had, and make the customer know that you're working for them, and then come up with crazy fixturing is everything. That's the true, like, there, to take machinists to different levels. Like, programming would be one of the highest things. Like, there's no two programmers that are the same, and based on that person's talent, whoever your alpha is, that your entire company will run at that pace, and you have winners and losers because of that. But the second behind programming would be your ability to fixture and out fixture the competition, and figure out how to take, you know, how to not open the doors, and how to, like, you know, run these parts and run complicated jobs flawlessly without having issues and stuff like that. And
Very true.
you know,
What would you recommend a shop do if they've been around a long time, but they're struggling to get any work? They can't get any motion to keep moving forward.
so what would you do for a company that's, like, you know, been around for a long time, but they can't actually get more work? So already there's issues with the company, right? you've been around for a long time and you can't get work. So self audit, one, like make sure that your process is like, make sure that you're operating to the highest standard. You know what I mean? And I tell people, like, you know, having a clean shop doesn't take, you know what I mean? It doesn't take money. It takes time. You know, come in on a Saturday, clean it up, paint it. You know, repaint your bathrooms. Like make your place amazing. You know, paint. You know, when I had hostas, I put gray all the way around my building, and then I put a red stripe, you know, to match my machines. You know, and my company today. I mean, I have a stunning, beautiful company. People come in here and they go into my bathrooms. I guarantee you right now, I have the best bathrooms in all of manufacturing. I'll call that out. I got music. I fun music through my 6 bathrooms. I play some cool music. Sometimes it's Hawaiian, you know, because I'm from Hawaii. And then I bring in all these things from Hawaii, and like artwork that we got from little artists on the beach and stuff. So then in each bathroom, they're all different. And then they have like my old skim boards, or they have like, you know, all this Hawaiian pictures and stuff. And, you know, I'm just like, hey, I'm not somebody, this is me, this is where I come from. So I'm going to give you a taste. And then you got music, and then you got the beautiful bowl sinks. We're getting the bidet toilet. But I'm just like, I'm having fun with it. I mean, don't knock it till you try it, you know, but you have fun with it. But guess what? When a customer comes in and with the wife, and the wife leaves, they're like, holy crap, did you see that guy's toilets? You know what I mean? Like, did you see that guy's like bathroom? Did you see how happy his guys are and how, you know, they're over there? I mean, we got this machine out. Barry was over there working on this machine right here last night, and he's just sweating and like just like freaking busting his ass yesterday. I'm like, you good? He's like, no, yeah. But at the same time, like, we just enjoy what we're doing. But I say all that because, like, every single company, man, you should walk into greatness. You should walk into absolute greatness, you know? Again, in one of the video that went out today, on YouTube, I talked about having Job Boss and how my routers were, and how I put my computer right next to the door when you enter the manufacturing facility. And first thing I would show customers is like, you know, this is how we actually write out everything. This is our documentation, and how you actually go through the barcode, and it'll show you per operation exactly, pictures attached, and then you go through in process, and then you go through inspection and in process, and you go through all these different things. And this is why we can't fail. This is why nobody can actually deviate from the plan, and this is how we protect the parts. And if there's a scrap part, here is our cage, and here's this, and different things and stuff. But then, so people walk in and they're impressed because they look at the shop, they look at the mentality and the mindset and the way that you run parts and the way that you do everything, and they're like, I want to work with this company because they care so much about their own people and their own shop. They're going to care about my parts, and I believe that my parts will come on time because they can show me the entire system. You know what I mean? So self audit is huge. You have to love your shop. And with whatever funds and money that you can come up, you have to make a beautiful shop and make sure that you guys are well trained, and you got to put out the great product. And then you have to go out and sell it to people. I said it earlier, right now is the easiest time to talk to any buyer. You know, it's like you just go on LinkedIn, go on social media, look at the companies, look at purchasing, look up the word buyer, look at these different things, figure out who's legit and different people, and not juniors and stuff, and then start like sending pictures of your parts and your process, and start posting, make friends with them, like go out and sell yourself to them, and get them to come to your shop and talk to them, and let them know, like, hey, this isn't where we want to be, this is where we are, we have a great shop, and then this is our goal, this is where we're going to be in a year, this is going to be a year after that, these are the machines that we're planning on bringing in, this is our whole game plan. And if you give us an opportunity, we will not be late on your parts. We will not scrap your parts. And if you need something on a Friday and you need it on Monday, I will literally run it myself to get this opportunity and show you that we'll actually be there for you and partner with you. And you just got to hustle, man. You got to go get that work. You know what I mean? It's not hard to get work. So long answer to your question, but
what advice do you have for maintaining a certain culture, the culture that you want in a company as it grows and you hire more employees. Because I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen it at some company they worked at. It started out great when it was small. Everybody got along great. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. But then as things grew, everybody became more disconnected. Now you have a bunch of people that are just disgruntled or don't care, don't put out, and some that do, and it's a whole mixed bag.
And then the owner gets separated from them, and then
right.
there's all of it and stuff. I will also like happily say I swear I have the best culture in any shop that I've ever seen. And I have a bunch of good guys, man, and my guys are from all kinds of different companies and stuff like that. But I think one of the talents that I have is I sell myself to the customer. I sell myself to, different things and stuff. But I also sell myself to my employees and stuff. And I care what they think. And they all have personal access to me. And every single day I interact with every single one of them before I start my day. And I just love on them, man. You know what I mean? But I think, but one of my strengths, I would say, is the clarity I have with the company. I let the people know what it is, what the vision is.
Right.
What are we trying to do? You know what I mean? And then how are we going to get there? And what levels are we seeing? And making sure that people know that I'm not going to hire over there. I'm not going to, what we do is very difficult. So I can't just hire I've tried, but you can't just hire some COO to come in here and be like, oh, I'm going to be on the level with the machining. I'm going to be on level with the filmmaking. I'm going to be on level with, the distribution. I'm going to be on like, you never find that guy. You know what I mean? It's just like, hey, even whether you're a machinist or you're in editing or you're in, whatever, in a year, that doesn't mean that's where you're going to be. Like, we will just keep having opportunities, we'll keep getting better, and we'll keep advancing people, and the pay will keep going up. And it's because we're doing these things that are different from everybody else is why we're going to be successful. And I share money. People know how much money we make. I share every time we get a new contract. I tell the guys, hey, we just got a contract with these people. We just got a contract with those people. I don't hide anything. You know what I mean? And and I'm proud. I let everyone know we're debt free. Ian is a friend of your guys, right? You know what I mean? And for a long time, I just didn't talk much. You know what I mean? I didn't talk about like the behind the scenes and stuff. But then, I don't know, a few years ago, I just contacted Ian and I invited him over. You know what I mean? I'm like, come take a look behind the scenes and you make your own opinions. You know what I mean? And I told all my guys, just talk to him. And I brought him all these other influencers and different people and just kind of opened up to everyone about all of it. I think I showed Ian and the guys from Practical Machinists like what you can do. You know what I mean? And nobody's ever done it. Nobody's ever done what we're doing right now.
Following that, I think it'd be a good time to ask what the future is for Titans of CNC. What do you have on the horizon? What's next?
Well, I'm having fun with the company. Remember what I said. You have a lot of people that talk about manufacturing, but who's teaching it? You know what I mean? Like, who's truly teaching it,
Yeah.
And so I think we've done a phenomenal job as far as like the amount of content that we've created that are on so many different levels. A lot of people don't even know how many tutorials and how many different levels of curriculum and series that we actually have out and stuff. But I just want to make sure that every single facet of manufacturing, going into sheet metal, going into actually building assemblies, going into, from water jet to laser to huge machines to mold making to just all the different things that encompass manufacturing. We want to be the number one education source for all manufacturing, period. And do it online and stuff, and then build our app up just to be the greatest manufacturing. It already is, but greatest manufacturing app dedicated to, imagine. I mean, think about the power in that. Anybody wants to hire somebody to go to our app, and they just find everyone, and they just contracted.
Cherry pick them.
They cherry pick them. But at the same time, you become a hero to industry. You teach industry. Some people get frustrated with me because I don't play by the rules, and I don't make friends with, like, it's all of politics in this industry. There's a lot of politics, and I'm sure you guys probably know there's a lot of like big companies that have bought me and tried to keep me down. You know what I mean? Because like I don't adhere to what they have to say. You know what I mean? That's why you never see me on stage at like IMTS or something. It's not because I'm not worthy. It's just like I'm an outsider. But at the same time, I'm just more like, I see it as like a coliseum, and I'm just like, the more that we build, the more that we do different things, it's like you just have a coliseum, and this is all the manufacturers are in here, and I have personal relationships with all the people in the coliseum, and because we have intimate relationships with the manufacturers around the world and the biggest companies and stuff, then that ecosystem just works, and it allows us to sell to it. It allows us to actually get fund and scale the biggest education movement that's ever been. So the future of all manufacturing is the easiest thing to understand, to get into, to learn, to do all of it. So as AI takes a million different jobs and a million different things, will be key in making manufacturing truly great again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of people do a lot of in manufacturing, but nobody's done what we've done with education and stuff. And so I don't know the total future. I'm just growing it as big as possible, because every ounce that it gets bigger, more lives are being touched and more people are coming into manufacturing, and we're taking back more work, and we're showing like you can want to bring back work, and like you can put policy in place. Oh, we're going to manufacture and we're going to do this, but who's teaching it on the ground level?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll do one last question before we wrap up. Apparently had a few people write in and ask what you bench. They want to know what you can bench press.
That's funny. I don't put it out on like the company stuff, but like people that follow me on my personal, I was huge, and I carried it well, but it was just hard. So the last 2 years I've been just talking about my own reinvention. I think people have always looked at me like I was in shape and stuff, but I just I wasn't, man. And but right now I'm 56 years old, and I bench about 330. I used to be up to 400 back in the day and stuff, and but I go to the gym every morning. I wake up 5 o'clock. I'm out the door. I go to the gym, and then I dedicate myself. I eat healthy. I have an amazing wife, and she's the same thing. Like we just both changed our lives. And my faith is huge, and I know that He knows what He created us for, what I created me for, and my team, and we're just go get it, And that's why I wanted to come on here with you guys too, is because like you don't have to. A lot of people misunderstand you, and like they just don't know you, and then but then it's like you don't get an opportunity to actually just have a conversation with people.
Right.
So I appreciate you guys inviting me on to your guys' podcast, man.
We appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Yep. We've certainly enjoyed it, Titan. I hope you have as well.
Yeah. No, it's great. Just talk machining, man. Talk manufacturing,
We've been at it for a while.
Yeah. I think this is our longest recording we've ever had.
That's cool. We just talk. I give you long answers too. I should shorten some. But it's all context, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So whenever you guys want in the future, man, if you guys want to talk again, just let me know.
Yeah, sure.
Good.
Oh, we'd be happy to.
Good luck to you guys. All right, guys.
All right.
Have a blessed day, man.
That's all for this episode of the Impractical Machinist podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Practical Machinist YouTube channel so you never miss an episode.
Also, give us a like or a 5-star rating if you enjoyed this episode. Drop a comment down below of what you learned from us, or to share your own experience and spread the word. Let your fellow machinists know.
If you have any follow-up questions, you can either DM us on Instagram, the Practical Machinist Forum, or on the Discord in our Instagram bios. Check out our Instagram as well at JobShopperTN, at Machining is Cool, at Marvel Machining, and be sure to follow Titans of CNC on Facebook or Instagram.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Keep those chips flying.
Boom.